Welcome back to another Lucky
Tuesday!
That's odd. I thought that would be big news.
You thought what would be big news?
Well, there seems to be an absence of a certain ornithological piece. A headline regarding mass awareness of a certain avian variety.
What are you talking about?
Oh, have you not heard? It was my understanding that everyone had heard.
Heard what? Brian, don't!
Well, a bird. A bird, a word, a 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 bird.
That's right, we're taking flight in this week's episode. There is a bit of foreshadowing that takes place. Zoro realizes he's at a disadvantage on the ground versus the Shandorians that can maneuver through the sky, and also the High Priest. Hence why the bird is the word. Think back to Whiskey Peak, where Zoro did in fact use an air attack in Hawk Wave, but that was no flying blade attack. So Zoro runs into a gorilla, as he calls the Shandorians. He one-punch mans that one, then Braham shows up to take Zoro on. Braham wastes no time against Zoro, as he begins to fire at him with his flash guns. Braham even taunts Zoro by getting in close and landing a kick that sends Zoro flying. After this exchange, Zoro gets a little bit more serious, drops his bag, and apologizes to Braham because he thought he was a loser. Zoro, desperate to get close to Braham, runs up a tree to try and attack him from the air. This leaves him wide open as Braham uses a Milky Dao to cut off the distance and attack Zoro. Barely avoiding Braham's attack, Zoro then has to slice one of the sky sea creatures just so he can have footing on the Milky Road. Zoro analyzes his situation after he takes a bullet to the leg. He tries a Bugs Bunny tactic by saying that his goggles are lucky and his pistols won't have an effect, so he should just give up. Braham calls Zoro's bluff, which then forces Zoro to resort to his flying blade attack. Zoro avoids the next set of attacks from Braham. Then Zoro gets saucy on him. Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thought. These 6 roots ground us in way of good, evil, and peace. And these desires are either pure or impure. These are the 36 worldly desires. Okay, we have to pause to break this down, alright? So we have 6 senses rooted in 3 desires, making that a total of 18. And those 18 can either be pure or impure, thus making 36 worldly desires. Zoro has conquered these desires and is channeling them into his sword. Zoro goes on to say, "You've done well to make it this far, but you are still going to die." Fire! Braham doesn't see the cannon aimed at his head as he charges in from the air. Then Zoro hits him with Itoriu Sanjoroku Poundo Ha! See, we were so spoiled back then, seeing Zoro in more than one fight in one arc. Well, Zoro finds himself in a Royal Rumble in the upper yard. Wiper targets Zoro first, so they have an exchange. That is until Nola interrupts their fight. Holy and Om find Zoro, but Ganfall steps in and gives Zoro a bit of a breather. Nola continues to pursue Zoro. Avoiding all of the attacks from everywhere all at once, Zoro notices Chopper in the distance. Zoro rushes to him, but he triggers a trap that wounds him. Seeing Chopper wounded like that caused Zoro to go against his code. He doesn't normally seek revenge, but Om may have made him change his mind. Zoro was faced up against Holy, avoiding his attacks, waiting for an opening when Om interrupts Zoro by attacking him with his Iron Cloud sword. Nami enters the upper yard with Aiza, so Zoro, Wiper, and Ganfall takes care of the High Priests that are chasing them. Zoro, worried about Nami, takes a blow from Om. This attack leaves Zoro face down in a puddle of his blood. Zoro and Wiper try to get Nola again, but Wiper targets Zoro again. Then Ohm targets Zoro. Zoro manages to deflect both Wiper and Ohm's attacks. It seems as though every time Zoro tries to make an attempt to rescue Nami, Ohm steps in and interrupts him. Zoro is on the defensive. Too many variables are in play for Zoro. He wants to rescue Nami first, since time is of the essence there. And Ohm, being able to use mantra, which is an observation haki, can see wherever Zoro is, thus making it hard for Zoro to strategize how he can save Nami. Zoro, while avoiding Ohm's attacks, takes out another high priest. Zoro brings back Hawk Wave against Ohm, but Ohm blocks it with an iron wall made from his Iron Cloud sword. As Zoro tries to close the gap between him and Ohm unleashes a flurry of attacks. Zoro uses his 36 caliber Phoenix, but Ohm blocks it with his own attack. Zoro was charging up to do another one, but had to dodge Ohm's incoming attack. Zoro then creates distance between him and Ohm. Once far enough, he dewey's up. Things are getting real. Zoro equips all three swords, and he's stacking the worldly desires up to 3 lifetimes. Then Zoro hits him with Shandorian. Hayakashi Poundo Hoi! This move breaks through Ohm's Iron Cloud sword and slices him up. Now let us rank the battles. Zoro versus Braham. Fight difficulty, S tier. Zoro had to fight against blinding pistols and a person that can maneuver through the air. Story impact, S tier. Zoro's only ranged attack was Hawk Wave, but during this bout, he upgrades it to 36 caliber Phoenix. Power displayed, S tier. Zoro channels all of the worldly desires in a lifetime into a flying blade attack. His Itoriyu Sanjuroku Poundo Ha! Strategic depth, B tier. A couple of strategies Zoro tried ended up getting him wounded. For a grand tier ranking of A rank, Zoro versus Ohm. Fight difficulty, S tier. Zoro takes on an observation haki user with a sword that has a dial in it, making it a ranged weapon. The world's greatest swordsman has to be able to handle such challenges. And not to mention, he was fighting other people in this Royal Rumble as well. Story impact, S tier. At the end of the day, Zoro is up against a swordsman. A ranged swordsman at that. To become the greatest, he had to defeat Ohm. Power displayed, S tier. Zoro tried out all of his ranged attacks. Hawk Wave, 36 caliber Phoenix, until he mastered his worldly desires 3 lifetimes to create the 108 caliber Phoenix. Strategic depth, S tier. Zoro ultimately used Ohm's mantra against him by laying in wait behind a stone wall to unleash his final attack once he knew where Ohm was. For a grand tier ranking of S rank,